Ms. Roybal Allard.
The gentlewoman from California is recognized for 30 seconds.
Madam Speaker, I take no joy in voting to impeach President Trump, but this president has blood on his hands in the wake of this attempted coup. The fact remains no president of the United States is above the law, and this president has sadly violated his oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. As members of Congress who have taken that same pledge, it is our duty to take this action and impeach this unfit and dangerous president. I yield back.
Gentlewoman's time has expired. The gentleman from New York wishes to reserve. The gentleman from Ohio is recognized.
Madam Speaker, we reserve.
The gentleman from Ohio wishes to reserve. The gentleman from New York is recognized.
Madam Speaker, I now yield 30 seconds to the gentleman from California, Mr. Cano.
The gentleman from California is recognized for 30 seconds.
I'm voting to impeach because, as Lincoln said, no grievance is a fit object of redress by mob law. But we must recognize that our hard work begins to address the real grievances and despair in left-behind communities, to be worthy of this capital that we hold sacred, to fix our broken windows and broken communities. Let's finally commit to investing trillions in creating good jobs in healthcare, in education, and infrastructure for communities and places that are hurting.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from New York reserves. The gentleman from Ohio is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We reserve.
The gentleman from Ohio wishes to reserve. The gentleman from New York is recognized.
Madam Speaker, I now yield 30 seconds to the distinguished gentlelady from Alabama, Ms. Sewell.
The gentlewoman, Ms. Sewell, is recognized for 30 seconds.
Madam Speaker, I rise today to support impeachment. I do so with a heavy heart and a lasting and searing memory of being in this gallery, the People's House, right up there, fearing for my life. And why? Because the President of the United States incited others to be violent, a mob of insurgencies in this House. It's unacceptable. It led to the killing of 5 Americans. Blood is on this House. We must do something about it. I ask that we move from stopping the steal to healing, but healing requires accountability, and everyone must be accountable. Who is that?
Gentlewoman's time has expired. The gentleman from New York wishes to reserve. The gentleman from New York wishes to reserve. The gentleman from Ohio is recognized.
Madam Speaker, I would yield 1 minute to the gentleman from Alabama, Mr. Moore.
The gentleman from Alabama is recognized for 1 minute.
Madam Speaker, I'm fairly new here. Actually, this is my first floor speech. But I rise to oppose this impeachment. You know, I asked my staff this morning, I said, how many times in our nation's history have we impeached a president? Well, they said up until this president, only 2 times in our nation's history. So here we are, first term, and we're going to impeach a president for what reasons? For what reasons? There have been no hearings. There have been no committees. We must defend the right and protect the process of impeachment. If we pursue this, from now on, from this day forward, impeachment will always be a political process. I ask my friends across the aisle, they always talk about healing. Healing. How do we come together as a nation? Since 2016, there has been hashtags going around in our nation that said, not our president. Resist, resist. Members across the aisle have said things in public to have supporters of this president attacked and demeaned. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The gentleman from Ohio wishes to reserve. Yes. The gentleman from New York is recognized.
Madam Speaker, I now yield 30 seconds to the distinguished gentlelady from Illinois, Ms. Schakowsky.
The gentlewoman from Illinois is recognized for 30 seconds.
Last Friday, I sent a letter to my constituents telling the story about the violent attack on our Capitol building, which is really like the temple of our democracy. The oath of office, the same oath of office that the President of the United States has taken, that all of us here have taken, and he has been the orchestrator of this attack. It is time to hold this president accountable. It is time, and history demands that we impeach
the gentlewoman's
Donald
time
Trump
has expired. The gentleman from New York wishes to reserve. The gentleman from Ohio is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We would reserve.
The gentleman from Ohio reserves. The gentleman from New York is recognized.
Madam Speaker, I yield 30 seconds to the gentleman from Connecticut, Mr. Himes.
The gentleman from Connecticut is recognized for 30 seconds.
The words have almost all been said. Search your soul, consider your oath. And I add 4 more words. Reflect on your legacy. My friends, which way is history flowing right now? Will Donald Trump join the pantheon of Washington, Lincoln, Roosevelt, and Reagan? Or will his 33% approval ratings and the condemnation of principled Republicans consign him to the heap of reviled demagogues with Joseph McCarthy and Andrew Johnson? Where he goes in history, you go in history, unless today you make a stand. I yield back.
Yields back. I would like to remind members to please direct their remarks to the chair. The gentleman from New York reserves. The gentleman from Ohio is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from New York is recognized.
Madam Speaker, I now yield 30 seconds to the distinguished gentleman from Hawaii, Mr. Carolan.
The gentleman from Hawaii is recognized for 30 seconds.
Madam Speaker, as a member of our armed forces, now a member of Congress, I have taken and given the oath of office many times. I will support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. The President violated this oath, inciting violent and deadly insurrection. Our sacred oaths are hollow without accountability. We must hold this president accountable, remove him from office, ensure he can never hold public office again. I urge my colleagues to do the same. This oath has to matter. Mahalo, and I yield back.
New York recognized. The gentleman from Ohio reserves. The gentleman from New York is recognized.
The gentleman from Maryland, Mr. Sarbanes.
The gentleman from Maryland is recognized for 30 seconds.
Madam Speaker, this beautiful Capitol dome is a symbol of freedom and democracy, not just for Americans, but for the people the world over. The action we take today, this impeachment, is a declaration to the world that when there is an attack on our democracy, whether it comes from without or whether, tragically, in this instance, it comes from within, we will respond to that threat and attack, and we will do what's necessary to strengthen our democracy. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The gentleman from New York wishes to reserve. The gentleman from Ohio.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I yield 2.5 minutes, Mr. Zeldin.
The gentleman from New York is recognized for 2.5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I am sickened and angered by what we all had to witness last Wednesday and call for the investigation and prosecution to the fullest extent of the law, every single person who participated in the violence and loss of life in this Capitol building last Wednesday. I, as a member, sit here listening to the entire debate and the 2 standards that are at play in this House. Why is it okay if a House Democrat calls for violence in the streets, but not if you're a Republican? Why can a House Democrat be rewarded with a gavel and a chairmanship if they're calling for physical confrontation of a Trump administration official, but they will be punished if they're a Republican? The double standards that we have seen time and time again, I need to better understand what the rules are of this House. Why is it that a committee chairman can lie to the American public about having more than circumstantial evidence that the president colluded with the Russians in order to win the 2016 election, but of course the Republicans can't and wouldn't lie to the American public about something like that? We need to better understand what these 2 standards are that are at play and to complete the record. Because the House Democrats are here to make President Trump the first president to be impeached twice. So I'll complete the record. First off, in the articles of impeachment, it's written that the president gave a speech and he told his supporters to come here and that he incited this riot. And one speaker after another here on the other side of the aisle have repeated that in the article of impeachment. But we all know that this was a pre-planned attack. We all know that there was pipe bombs being discovered while the president was speaking. We all know that the Capitol perimeter was being breached during the president's speech. We know that this was pre-planned and it started while the president was speaking. Why is that not in the articles of impeachment? Why is that not being incorporated into my colleague's remarks? To complete the record, if you want to make the president the first president to be impeached twice, well, we'll add something else to that. Thank you to the president for his efforts to defeat MS-13 in my district or to withdraw from the... Request 30 more seconds.
Expired. The gentleman yields an additional 30 seconds.
30
Did I hear
seconds.
correct?
Yes.
The gentleman has another 30 seconds.
Thank you to the president for his efforts to move the embassy in Israel to Jerusalem and recognize Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights and to take out Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi and Qassem Soleimani, to eliminate the ISIS caliphate, to enter into the historic Abraham Accords.